Serious, how many people have died from your high school class so far? How did they die? We had 3 in 1 year. 2 were suicides and the third was this kid who was murdered by another student on Christmas Eve over $20 worth of weed. Sad part is this kid has nothing to do with the deal. It was his brother that the killer had a problem with. This chick my friend went to school with at a neighboring school got shot in the head because she gave the guy 7g of weed instead of the full gram. Happened at a CVS. We were barely out of high school too. Nobody's life is worth $10. And if you're gonna sell weed you're gonna have to learn how to spot a sketchy dude. At that point the value of the one bullet is significant compared to missing weed. How bad in the head you have to be to do that? I think it wasn't a carefully thought out cost benefit thing. My guess would be how some people get so furious at feeling like people are pulling a fast one on them. And they have to prove that they are still in control. 1000% this. So, I found out about a death in a roundabout way. An old classmate was tagged in a photo on my FB feed. Thing was, he wasn't in the picture. It was just a couple guys holding a vase of some sort. The caption read, "We had a great time. Thanks for letting us borrow / guy." I looked through some of / guy's photos and kept seeing him tagged in pictures of people holding the same vase. Turns out, he got squashed by some heavy machinery doing construction. After he was cremated, his parents put his ashes in an urn and lent it out to his friends so that they could still hang out with him. It was kind of sweet, albeit a bit unusual. Other deaths that I know of have mostly been suicide or car accidents. A lot happens in a decade. Definitely unusual, but I see nothing too weird about it. It's a bad way to go. To be able to have his friends hold him one last time is sweet to me, even if it's a small gesture. 1. Kid jumped off a bridge with a few other friends to pass time in quarantine. It shouldn't have killed him, but the rapids took him. Didn't know him well, but he was one of the popular kids, and it was all over the local news. Pretty crazy. Did this happen in the Tilley River, CA? If we are thinking about the same incident, that kid went to my high school. Turns out we had lots of overlapping friends, and everyone had only good things to say about him. Did he went by the nickname Angel? One died in a house fire. The other was killed when his drunk girlfriend slammed her car into a tree. My brother's high school class is truly astounding. One girl was killed by a passing vehicle while collecting cans on the side of the road for ROTC. One guy died of cancer. A drunk guy fell asleep in the middle of the road after an argument with his mother and got crushed by an oncoming car. Another dude flew his car off the road at a dangerous intersection in town. All of this during their senior year. That's why I wonder why Americans are allowed to drive at 16, but the drinking age is 21. Like WTF. In theory, you'd have 5 years driving experience before you took your first drink. In practice, not so much. Cynically, I'd say maybe we should reverse that. But honestly, at those ages the legal or after the fact limitations are a joke. Driving itself is the issue. The last person who died driving wasn't drunk, but a teen who drove dangerously at an intersection. There is reason why most countries give driver's license at older age. A lot. 5 heroin overdoses that I know of. 3 car accidents and 3 suicides. I dated a girl from a Rust Belt town where the factories had all left by the early 90s and there really wasn't anything to replace them. Wall-to-wall despair, unemployment and opioids. I've never met anyone who was sober themselves who had more suicides and odds in their circle than she did. What town? Gotta be something like Youngstown, Ohio. Yeah, it was halfway between Cleveland and Youngstown. Her parents, like her grandparents, had worked in some good jobs in plants when first married and had just assumed they could do that until retirement. Everything slowly dried up or moved away. They both scrounged multiple shitty low-paying gigs to pay a mortgage on a house that was losing value. She made more than both of them put together some months as a fine dining bartender on the West Coast where we met. But like every few months a childhood friend or acquaintance odd or killed themselves. One of her friend's baby daddy killed her friend during a meth binge and left their kid at a firehouse and then led the police on a high-speed suicide by cop chase. He'd been the captain of the football team, but things never happened for him. I'm the last remaining person in my graduating class. The rest passed away from various causes, mostly old age. This has got me thinking who will be the last remaining person from my class. I graduated in 2011. Sadly, we had many people in my graduating class die before or right after graduation. Most of them were heroin overdoses. But the one that hit me hardest was this girl I used to be friends with. Her aunt kicked her out of her home her junior year, and she couch surfed for over a year with random people before she ended up homeless. She froze to death in a park here in the winter due to being homeless. Nobody knew what she was going through until she passed. I don't know the details, but F her aunt. No, don't. Seriously. Bad idea. Class of 05. 2 have died. One was a rod and the other was cancer. I'm also class of 05. And one person died of cancer. It was the week after she finished the last round of treatment. She developed pneumonia and passed that quick. Legitimately the most innocent, happy, and sweet young woman I've ever met. And I thought knew that long before she passed. One of the only people ever that makes me see the good in a person of faith instead of hypocrisy. This one guy from my class graduated HS 3 years ago, recently got pulled over, ran out of his car into a forest, let the police pursue him, and then snuck back and got into the cop car and drove away. He got caught and apparently he was on drugs. After he got sentenced, he had just turned 18 at this point. He ended up ending his own life. It's so sad because I knew the guy before his life spiraled downhill. Such a tragic ending for him, and it's sad to even think about. What was his sentence? I think it was 20 years. He had 4 charges against him. 20 years for that. Jesus. Yeah, he also destroyed a lot of property during the chase. The police were pursuing him, and he led them on a chase all around my county. But yeah, I could be wrong on the sentencing, but I think that was what led him to take his own life. I graduated in 2009. One kid died my senior year of a heroin overdose, which came as a complete surprise to everyone. To my knowledge, no one else in my graduating class of 200 has passed in the years since. But I don't keep up with most of them. I'm shocked at the number of heroin overdoses I've read about in this thread. When I was in high school, the drug of choice was alcohol, and maybe a little marijuana, of course. Now that my class is in our mid-50s, I suppose I'll be reading about more heroin deaths pretty soon. Since heroin is the pain medication my generation is turning to when they can't afford their prescription painkillers. This seemed to be an isolated incident given the circumstances, which I don't need to get into. But the opioid epidemic is very real. I have friends that grew up in other parts of the country, and it seems like everyone in their hometowns have been impacted, at least indirectly. Too many. Heroin sucks. It astounds me that so many kids can get access to heroin. I had a good friend, star quarterback for our freshman team, die of a heroin at 19. He'd been using lots of drugs for years. I still can't believe he's gone 17 years later. It's easier to buy illegal drugs than the legal ones if you're underage. We only graduated this May, and some guy in our class died from a car crash. Was on the local news. Sorry to hear that. Definitely highlights how precious life is and how it can happen to any of us. Stay safe out there. 1. She had a stroke while we were at school. That's horrible. Was there a reason why it happened? Generally, if a young person dies from a stroke, it's a spontaneous stroke from an arterial venous malformation, which is basically a birth defect. Strokes can also be caused by illegal drugs or physical trauma, but then people just say he or she died in a car wreck, even if they technically died from a stroke caused by those things. It can also be caused by certain birth control pills. At least 4 that I know of. 1. Suicide. Managed to get a gun, not USA, and shot herself at the university bathrooms during her first semester. 2. Diabetes. She had diabetes since she was 13. All throughout high school she would drink at least 2 Coca-Colas a day. She was 26 when she died. 3. Heart attack. 25Y/0. He was a great guy. Both his parents died in a highway accident on our last year of high school. He still managed to finish uni. He died in his office 1 hour after clocking in. Survived by his younger sister. 4. He was still in uni. Last semester. Started his own business. A candy shop. He caught his employees stealing, so he fired them. Next day they kidnapped him. They beat him to death. There were 82 of us. It was a Catholic high school. Fuck those nuns. My stepbro died of type 1 at 18. Not something to F around with. It's seriously a fucking scary disease. So sorry for your loss. I have it, and I'm terrified every day to be honest. I feel like I can't talk about it to anyone I roll, since a lot of people don't even really know what type 1 is. And I always just have to laugh off all the jokes or helpful advice. But my health is in awful shape, and with the pandemic I don't know if I'll even be able to afford insulin on a regular basis soon. I'm so scared I can't sleep most nights and Imaru sorry for going off. Got a little wine drunk for the first time in a long time. Hope ya don't mind. W. I'm type 1 and thought high school I found it hard to get my head around and learn how to look after myself, but as I got older I started looking online to find people who might have been going through the same thing as me and it really helped. More people than you expect are type 1 and understand what you're going through so don't feel like you're alone.